Do you feel like an inconsistent artist? Do you dabble in a lot of different art styles and even get pretty good at some of them but struggle to come up with a style that is uniquely your own? Then this video is for you because I have a method to find your art style way faster and have a lot of fun while doing it. A lot of how to find your style advice comes down to one thing: draw as much as possible, and through that repetition you will eventually find your art style. And I agree that you should make art as much as possible for a whole lot of different reasons. I've even done a daily art challenge myself. But I don't think make art as much as possible or draw every day is the best starting point for finding your art style. I think it skips a very important part. Because when you start with make X amount of art in Y amount of time, you're turning it into work. And when art feels like work, you end up staring at a blank page forever and then finally forcing yourself to put something on it, and then you're not super inspired by the result and you dread doing it the next day and then you die. Well, eventually. Even if art is a side hustle for you or your full-time job, you want it to feel like play, not like work. That's why my starting point is, how can I inspire myself? When you start from a place of inspiration, the ideas flow more easily, you love what you're doing, you'll be more consistent, and you'll find your art style faster. I actually find that I make more art when I start from a place of inspiration instead of committing to make a certain amount of art in a certain amount of time. It's just way more fun. With that said, let's talk about my method. When we think of style, we often think of things like oil paintings or anime or vector art, but I think of these things more as aesthetic, and I think there's a whole lot more to style than just aesthetic. I break it down into 3 categories: aesthetic, medium, and subject matter or theme. The first step in my process is to fill out those lists customized to what you love making as an artist. Don't be picky about this part, throw everything in there. We're gonna use that chaos to our advantage. These are my lists. The next step is to take one item from each list and put them into one art piece as best as you can. You can do this according to whichever item feels right at the time, but also choosing at random can spark some very interesting ideas. Approaching inspiration this way gives you enough flexibility to do what feels right at the time, but enough structure to give you a starting point so you don't just feel overwhelmed by the options. Micron pens plus cartoon plus fantasy made me draw this little gnome right here. This was actually one of my first time using micron pens, and because I used this method and kept it loose, it turned out a lot better than I thought it would. Acrylic plus graffiti plus positivity resulted in this piece of the word joy, which then inspired me to go deeper into graffiti art and make Stay Spicy. Instead of forcing myself to make art, I just went from one piece to another and improved my skills drastically in the process. And it didn't feel like work at all. As you do this, incorporate more and more items from your list. For me, this actually happened very naturally. For example, I was searching for this next one in a box, but it's actually right behind me. Digital plus lettering plus ADHD gave me I put the fun in executive dysfunction. That was my starting point for this one, but I naturally included a lot of other things from my list too. The more and more items you include from your lists, the more the results will be your style. You'll find yourself combining things that you thought didn't go together at all. But it turns out these things do go together. You've just never seen it before. And if you've never seen it before, that means you're making something unique. Something in your style. For example, I've been making vinyl stickers for years, and I only recently started getting into a little resin art. I thought these things did not go together at all, especially since resin does not stick to vinyl. They quite literally do not go together. But then I started thinking about how I could make them go together. And I ended up finding an acrylic clear coat that sticks to vinyl, and then the resin sticks to that. So I started putting my stickers on some coasters, and it worked like a charm. That then inspired my last huge project of taking my entire sticker collection and turning it into a resin table. That's what my camera is standing on right now. And now we reach the part of my process that gets really fun. This is where I get inspired to make several pieces and really dive into my own art style. Take as many items from your 3 lists as possible and put them all into one art piece however you can. There are 2 important things to keep in mind here. 1, remember what I said about art feeling like work earlier? You have to remember that this stage of the process is purely a playground. Allow yourself to make straight up bad art. When you're literally piling things on top of each other, it's not always going to turn out great. But even then, you're still going to start connecting some dots about how certain things fit together. I find myself thinking, yeah, the final piece was awful, but this piece of it worked really well. Let's focus in on that for the next one. Use your worst art to fuel your creativity to make your best art. The second thing to remember is that when you're combining a bunch of different things together, you don't always have to start from square one. You can use what you already have. For digital art, you can just grab elements from previous pieces and jam them all together. It's not stealing if you take it from yourself. Here's exactly how this playground phase worked for me. I chose just too many words from my list. Hold on, if I don't read directly from it, I will forget something. Digital, resin, acrylic, stickers, lettering, colorful and bright, cartoon, fantasy/nerdy, and funny. To use what I already have, I make nerdy fantasy stickers inspired by a game that definitely wouldn't get me a copyright strike if I mentioned it. And they have a digital vector art look, so check off digital too. So then I thought, how can I incorporate these in a way that doesn't clash with the other elements I need to include? What if I just slap them all on a wood canvas, overlapping to where they kind of blend together and just form this bright, colorful background? Huh, look at that. Check off bright and colorful too. Yeah, that might work. Or not. But we're in the playground, so we're gonna do it. Let's see what's left. The stickers already have lettering, but I felt inspired to do more with that element. Okay, on top of that background, I could do acrylic cartoon lettering. How do I make it funny? Ooh, I got it. You know that sense of fear when you're rolling dice for a vague, non-copyright infringing game? I can make a joke out of that, and I can use lettering to make the joke. Oh, the only thing left is resin. It's almost as if I already figured out how to combine stickers and resin. With all that chaos brewing, I got to work. Wait, I'm working on my art style right now? This doesn't feel like work, it feels like I'm just playing around. Oh. I started by laying down some layers of gesso on a circular wooden panel so it would be a breeze to paint on. Then I absolutely covered the whole thing in my stickers, overlapping them all over the place. Then I took a picture of it and took that over to Adobe Fresco. There, I drew on top of the picture what would end up being the acrylic art to make sure I had all the proportions how I wanted them. I covered the whole thing in masking tape and then used a projector to position and trace out the outline of the painting. Using a craft knife, I cut through the outline and took off both the tape and the stickers. Well, look at that. I have a perfectly primed area uniquely shaped to my design, with the rest of the piece still protected by masking tape. Using the projector again, I traced the full design, and then paint, paint, paint. After that dried, I took off the rest of the masking tape and covered the whole thing in that acrylic clear coat I talked about earlier. I decided to add a frame to it, and this actually made the resin part a lot easier. By sealing the back of the frame to the piece with silicone, it gave the resin a little well to sit in on top, so I didn't have to worry about it pouring over the sides at all. Note that when working with resin, you should always wear a respirator and gloves. You do not want to breathe the stuff in or touch it before it's cured. I also recommend wearing a hat to prevent hair from falling on the resin. Fun fact, I pretty much never wore hats before working with resin, but now I wear them all the time, specifically as a way to display art. I traded a couple prints for this unicorn charm and it's so cute! Anyway, I covered the whole thing up with a bin to prevent anything from falling in while it was curing and waited. And this is the final result. It's so shiny. Even though I was allowing myself to make something as bad as it needed to be, I love how this came out. And it is so uniquely my art style in so many ways. If you've seen even a little of my art without seeing my face or hearing my voice, you would know that this was made by me. I went to the playground and I found my art style. The things I learned while making this piece continue to inspire and influence so much of my art. I'm not forcing myself to make art every day. I want to make art every day. As I was talking about earlier, even though I think inspiration is a better starting point, a daily art challenge really is a great way to improve your technical skills. I've got a video about how to survive a daily art challenge here. And if you saw anything you liked of mine in this video and want to support my journey, check out my shop. I've got something for you.